You've heard this a million times. We repeat this because we are constantly gauging a new digital audience here. We can animate your comments here on screen like this one. From Valerie, which we will come back to. Valerie, your comment coming up here from Twitter. You can use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyWalt, or hashtag HeyPaul. Any of the hashtags that you see across your screen here, they'll be on yellow stripes on the left and right side of your screen. If you use one, we can animate your comment on screen. If you don't want your comment to be featured, then just don't use a hashtag. And we'll, of course, let your comment scroll idly on by, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, but we want to hear from you. You are a big part of this story. And the conversations that we've had here on WFLA Now for the past week have been insightful and have captured the attention of many. Hello there to Reddit, hello there to TikTok, and a lot of folks have been following our conversations here. So we're going to continue to take your hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyWalt, hashtag HeyPaul questions and comments here in just a few moments. But let's radio in here to Paul Lamison. Paul from Eagle, do you have us? Paul Lamison to Eagle 8 HD. This is JB on WFLA Now. You're live. Do you have us? Third time's a charm, right? Paul Lamison, this is JB on WFLA Now. You're live with myself and Walt Petito. Do you have us? Oh, we keep missing.
Kind of up the nose.
It's 11:12.
We keep missing the time. Okay, so he's back live on television.
The Eagle 8 showing you right there what Josh Taylor from the Northport Police Department was talking about. The water there, that's the obvious water, but I think within the wooded area there's more swampy water now. And I saw from a survivalist who reached out to me that talked about someone who wanted to remain hidden would walk in the water to cover their trail, so to speak, but that carries its own hazards in itself. Large area, by the way, 25,000 square feet.
Enormous. And just a fraction of the size, of course, we've been talking about as Grand Teton National Park here. So
acres, that is, not feet. Acres.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that because there have been different units of measurement to describe the different sizes of the areas that we're searching here, acres, feet, square miles. So you can see here that now, okay, we are off trails here. The ATV is kind of going through some of these areas now and some of these wooded areas searching for, again, if you're just joining us, this is the search right now for Brian Laundrie. But I want to begin with this very important one here. We're going to get Paul Lamison involved here in our coverage here momentarily. But let's get to Valerie here on Twitter. Hashtag HeyJB. This is what I began with here, Walt, a few minutes ago. Was this a new search started based on a tip? And here's the thing, because they didn't search this area yesterday. We were talking about this live on stream yesterday, that the search was kind of re-strategized to focus on whatever else investigators knew at the time.
So they took a day off, which could be a manpower thing. We don't know.
I asked about that, and we're still trying to clarify whether or not it was just because they needed a break. Because again, this is a law enforcement agency and law enforcement in general that has been overworked clearly.
And the difference in this time is they have approached this 25,000 acre preserve from the Venice side of it, as opposed to the other side, which they started on Saturday. Was that from a tip? I think many of us wonder the same thing. But Josh Taylor from the Northport Police Department talks about the Carlton Reserve being a vast and unforgiving location at times, currently waist deep in water in many areas, as we're seeing there. So we don't know whether it's just strategy, whether they took a day off. It's it's not necessarily tiring for those officers there, but there are some, I imagine, on foot in the thick of it, dealing with whatever you might deal with out there off the trails, if you will. Because you've made a good point, JB. If you're trying to hide or you're probably not staying on the trails.
Right. And I don't know exactly. I have never been in the vast wilderness trying to hide from dozens and dozens of teams of officers who are trying to find me. I can't speak to that, but what I can speak to is at this stage, this is a commenter yesterday messaged me off the clock and brought up something that I think is, look, as you see here, let's just go live here to Eagle 8 HD. You can see here they're looking on binoculars. So this is what the search looks like here at this hour.
I think he's off. He's ready to go. Paul might be ready to go.
Oh, okay. Let's see if we can bring in Paul Lamison. Paul, this is JB on WFLA Now. You are live. Do you have us via radio? Paul Lamison, do you copy? This is JB. We are live on WFLA Now. What do you have up there from Eagle 8 HD?
I don't know. They're still looking.
And again, some radio difficulties here with Eagle 8 HD.
We have
again
to tell
bring
him.
in.
I hope he's there now.
We'll be able to bring in Paul Lamison here, and he'll be able to hear us and be able to take some of our questions here momentarily. But there you were able to see some of the search efforts. But back to the point that I was making. Somebody made a point here, and I'm not going to say it's a point that I necessarily agree with or disagree with, but let's see if our commenters agree here with what I'm about to say. Somebody messaged me off the clock and said, you know, Brian Laundrie might be the subject of a massive missing persons case. He might be somebody who the entire world wants to speak to, and everybody is fearing the worst right now as far as his involvement with Gabby Petito and what happened to the 22-year-old woman from Northport. But the person said at the bottom of the note to me personally, or it was to either my Facebook or my Instagram account, and said, if there's one thing I truly believe is that Brian Laundrie is not stupid. And I just kind of hovered on that for just a moment and thought about it. And we've been talking about this, Walt, about how difficult it is to just vanish and disappear. That disappearing act that we've been talking about over the last several days, how difficult it is when the entire world is on the lookout for you and you just completely go off the grid and you are gone. The words yesterday that I read in this message that read that Brian Laundrie is not stupid kind of just stuck with me. And whether or not our commenters agree or disagree, it was just something that I hadn't really ever, truly thought about. But we've talked about his mindset, what his mental state might be like here at this time. Again, with the entire world watching him, with, of course, all of the media, all the media stories and all the coverage. It's been immense. So
But if you're going to do that, I think this is the place you do it. And I also think that, if you do think, if you don't make mistakes, I'm not so sure it's impossible to hide. It's just a matter of finding a path out of the country. And I don't know that would be. It's going to be difficult, obviously, from Florida, but if he could make his way out of Florida, that would be the key. Now, the question is, why are the police back here? Do they have a tip that he never emerged from this wooded area?
Again, trying to reach out to Paul Lamison, really just curious because he has seen a lot in his career over the decades here at WFLA News Channel 8. Very curious to hear from him. Again, 8 on your side, senior investigator Walt Petito. JB Buno here with you live on WFLA Now. Let's get to Tommy Rosalie from the Facebook Live comment section. This one's for you. Hashtag Hey Walt. Would law enforcement have followed the parents and Brian's money yet to try to trace him?
You would hope so, right? But obviously, to JB's point, if he's smart, he's using cash. If he's trying to remain hidden, his parents made it sound like he just went out for a hike, which was odd. And I saw a police officer's comment out of a retired officer's comment. Why would sort of questioning the parents? Wouldn't they question him? Hey, shouldn't you stay around? But that's the last they heard of him, which was last Tuesday. But we don't have any record of whether law enforcement followed the parents or Brian's money at this point. They have not commented. I will tell you, local law enforcement is Northport is referring us to the FBI, and the FBI generally is not going to comment for obvious reasons. They don't want Brian to know if they are indeed tracking his credit cards or whatever. But you would just make the assumption, being the FBI and doing what they do, that is what they're doing right now. Trying to at least develop an electronic trail of where Brian has been and where he might go. So, decent question, but we're not getting that yet. And again, the FBI is the lead agency, and it's not our FBI. It's the FBI out of Denver.
Let's get to some more of the questions and comments that are coming in here, folks, on WFLA Now. We're live on a lot of different places. I don't know if we have the ability yet to go live on Reddit or on TikTok, but hello to our Reddit and TikTok audience there. I've been following some of the stuff that's been going on TikTok and Reddit, and also to our live audience here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and WFLA.com and the WFLA app. Let's just quickly remind folks that if you don't want to listen to the latest, you can read the latest, and you can read the latest on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Also, we're going to get into the search warrant documentation of what we learned from that with Walt here and with Masa, our 8 on your side investigator here. But the latest, all of the stories here are for you on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. All right, I am now being told here, and let's see if we can finally get through to Eagle 8 HD's Paul Lamison and see if we can get him on. Paul, this is JB, Eagle 8 HD, do you copy?
I can hear you.
Paul, you are live on WFLA now. Just kind of walk our audience through, walk our audience through. I'm going to avoid every urge in my body to not make a news pun there. Walk our audience through here what you're seeing from Eagle 8 HD, and you've been here now for the last 25, 30 minutes.
Okay, JB, what they're doing, we've seen a bigger search effort than we've seen in the past, and they are in a different area. Even though they're still in the Carlton Reserve, you have to remember that's a huge area, and they're over closer to Venice now. And where these guys are searching right now, it's a little bit dry. They've gone through some heavily wooded area and some water. Now, what we've seen these guys do on these SUVs, I'm going to go in real close. They're looking, and when they see something that kind of catches their eye, they're pulling over and looking with binoculars. They also have maps out, and so they're kind of figuring out where they are and what they're doing. Now, this is like looking for a needle in a haystack. They're riding right now against part of a lake and part of a heavily wooded area just on a path. And so they've been doing this a lot. We also saw drones up, little drones that almost look like airplanes, like an RC airplane. They're flying this area in a grid pattern. There's also a huge command center. They have plenty of ATVs out here. They have four-wheelers. They have all kinds of vehicles and people on foot walking through. And what they said, the Northport Police said, they're also concerned when they walk through some of this water, some of the deeper water, there's alligators, there's snakes and other wildlife, so they're on their alert as well. So this is a dangerous search. And again, it's a search, almost a needle in a haystack. Here you see they're going to go through some of the flooded area. You see how wet it is right through this little area as they make their way through. And I'm going to move the camera out wide and show you just how tight this area is and how hard it is. Now, if you want to hide, if you don't want to be found and you're out in this area, it's really easy to do. This is a roadway that's been cut through here. But if I move the camera over here and show you like a heavily wooded area, you can very easily go inside those trees and you can't be seen from the air or the ground. And that's what they're up against. This is a really difficult search, and especially because it does cover such a wide area. And again, I told you they're over closer to Venice now, and that's a little bit different. They stopped the search yesterday. Today they're continuing it, but in a completely different area. So I'm wondering if they maybe have some new information to lead them to this area. But this area is drier than the other area, but still has a lot of flooded areas and a lot of wooded patches as well. So you have a little bit different topography. You have this area that they're going through, almost like a flat, where there's not a lot of water. But if I move the camera and show you up to this woods, you can go into this area where it's really thick woods, and you can hide and nobody can find you, and it's gonna be tough to even walk through there because, again, the snakes, the alligators, the other wildlife. So again, very difficult search that they're doing. I'll pull the camera in really wide and show you this area, the vastness of it. That's over towards Venice, and it's just woods and woods for as far as you can see. So again, this search is going to take a while, but they're out here in full force. So JB, I'm going to throw it back to you right now.
Eagle 8 HD's Paul Lamison for us, everybody in the sky. Thanks a lot, Paul. We'll check back in with Paul a little bit later on here. Back with you live on WFLA now. We've got Paul Lamison in the sky and Eagle 8 HD. Tap of the touchscreen, we can bring up Walt Petito here. Everybody, 8 on your side, senior investigator. I'm JB Buno. We're here live again for the search for Brian Laundrie at Carlton Reserve. As Walt mentioned earlier, Walt, you're learning your geography here in Florida pretty quickly. We're live here right near Venice, Florida. Again, this is a very vast as you just heard Paul talk about there, a very vast area here to search. And you're not alone. If you felt your heart kind of sink when Paul, who has many years of experience as far as covering stories from the sky, if your heart sank a little bit when he said, see that wooded area right there? You can't see in there from the ground, you can't see in there from the sky. And there's thousands of dense wooded spots. You can see a bunch of them here in the center of your screen where Brian Laundrie or anyone, a missing person, could be in there, and it would take a staggering amount of time to comb through all of that wooded area, that dense wooded area, to find anything. But so
this game, you're not ready for it.
Though the family had said that that was a place that he went. He liked to go there. I've been someone who have done hiking in wooded areas, and I knew those areas pretty well. Nothing like this necessarily, but you know trails. Sometimes the trails aren't obvious, so he may know of a place where, you know, he would go, an exact place where he knows there are, you know, within that those trees you see, that stand of trees, there could be spaces between the trees, maybe a more impromptu path that people have cut. I know I've experienced that before. And if this guy had gone there a lot, what is his experience and what was his favorite place? It's 25,000 acres. It's the size of a city, for crying out loud, and so there's a lot of space. And yeah, you wonder if, as Paul pointed out, they're on the main road, that one of the trails, I assume 80 miles of trails, they're on that. Are they with their binoculars looking for broken branches, signs that somebody might have entered a wooded area? Those are things we don't know yet. And according to Northport Police, there are no plans for a news conference today, and any information, any new information, is supposed to come out of the Denver office of the FBI. So we may not find out anything today unless they actually find Brian Laundrie.
Take a moment, folks. We're going to start taking your hashtag #HeyWalt, hashtag #HeyJB comments here in about 90 seconds. To take a moment, open up Maps or Google Maps on your phone. Type in Carlton Reserve, okay, Florida, in Google Maps or whatever map application that you use. Switch to satellite view and just look at how large of an area that the FBI and search crews are currently navigating through. It is a staggering area as far as its scope and size, and you can see here that there are quite a number of teams here on the ground here currently looking for Brian Laundrie. But again, I keep going back to this. We don't know the answer to this question, but I keep going back to this, Walt, and to our commenters here. This was a search that, again, the search didn't occur yesterday. Monday, they didn't search this area. Monday, they executed the search warrant at the house, left with all the boxes. Follow News Nation's Brian Enton on Twitter. He has a great shot of them lifting all the boxes into that law enforcement vehicle there, all the evidence that they collected over the course of the search warrant. That was yesterday. Was there something that we learned during the execution of the search warrant, during any potential possible conversations with Brian Laundrie's parents? Was there anything that we have learned over the last 30 or so hours that leads to us being back here?
Like, did they say something like, well, when Brian went, he would park on the Venice side of the reserve? By the way, to give you some perspective, I'm going to do some Googling here. So the entire city of Tampa, 42 surrounding suburbs, covers 70,000 acres. So this reserve is more than a third the size of Tampa, with all trees. Just imagine that for perspective. That's a large area to cover. A lot of it